When we talk about God preparing a divine shift in your life, it means heaven is setting something in motion long before you see any evidence on earth. A shift from God doesn't begin with noise, announcements, or visible signs. It begins quietly, internally, spiritually. Many times the shift starts in the unseen places in the heart, in your mindset, in your endurance, in the way God strengthens you privately before He elevates you publicly. The reason the message calls today a turning point day is because there are appointed moments in your life where God chooses to intervene. These are moments when the weight you've been carrying becomes the very thing God uses to push you into a new season. Sometimes He allows pressure so that you outgrow what held you, and other times He allows stillness so you recognize His voice shifting your direction. The divine shift means God is arranging circumstances, aligning people, and preparing opportunities that you cannot see. It means spiritual forces are being pushed back, barriers are being removed, and doors that were locked tight are being prepared to open. When God is about to change your story, He first changes the atmosphere around you. You may feel restless, uncomfortable, or even unsure, but that is often the sign that God is getting ready to lift you out of one chapter and transition you into the next. The shift can feel like something breaking, but in reality, something is being birthed. Heaven does nothing by accident. Every delay was a setup, every hardship was a preparation, and every tear watered the soil for what is coming. God prepares a shift by loosening your attachment to old places, old habits, old fears, and old battles. What used to satisfy you no longer does. What you used to tolerate now overwhelms you. What you once believed was your limit starts feeling too small. This is because God is preparing to take you somewhere bigger, deeper, and greater than where you have been. Divine shifts often begin with divine discomfort. You may not recognize it at first, but God is shaking you free from stagnation. He is removing what cannot go with you into the next season, wrong relationships, draining environments, doubts that cripple your faith, and voices that try to talk you out of your destiny. When God prepares a shift, He also prepares you. He strengthens your spirit, sharpens your discernment, and ignites your expectation. He starts waking you up spiritually, making you aware that something is on the horizon. The reason the message says today is not an ordinary day is because God does not shift you on a random day. He shifts you on a destined day, a day marked by heaven, a day your spirit feels before your eyes can see it. This is the moment where God whispers to your heart that your story is not ending in pain, loss, or confusion. Something new is rising. Something powerful is forming. And when God decides to change your story, nothing, no enemy, no circumstance, no past mistake can stop the shift He's preparing for you. Faith rising above feelings and circumstances is one of the greatest battles a believer faces, because feelings speak loudly and circumstances often look bigger than the promises God made. But true faith is not built on what the eyes can see or what the emotions can handle. It is built on the confidence that God is working even when nothing looks different. Faith is choosing to believe that the invisible hand of God is moving even when your situation appears frozen. Feelings fluctuate, circumstances shift, But faith remains steady because it is anchored in the character of God, not the chaos around you. When the message calls for praying with faith, it is a call to rise above the noise in your mind, the fear in your heart, and the heaviness in your spirit, and to trust that God is still writing your story. There are moments in life when your feelings will tell you to give up, moments when your circumstances scream that nothing is changing. In those moments, faith becomes a decision, not an emotion. It becomes an inner strength that pushes you forward even when you feel unqualified, exhausted, or forgotten. Faith is what makes you lift your head when your situation tries to make you bow in defeat. Faith is what makes you declare God's promises even when your life looks completely opposite. Faith is what makes you show up to pray when everything in you says prayer won't change anything. This kind of faith is not loud. Sometimes it's quiet and persistent. It is the whisper that says, God is still with me. God is still moving. God has not abandoned me. Praying with faith is not pretending your problems don't exist. It is refusing to give your problems more authority than God. It is seeing the storm, but choosing to trust as the one who can calm it. It is feeling the weight of life, but trusting that God can lift you at the right moment. Faith acknowledges the pain, but believes in the promise. It recognizes the struggle, but holds onto the strength that only God can provide. Faith is what allows you to walk through valleys without losing your identity and to face mountains without losing your courage. When you pray with faith, you shift your focus from your limitations to God's unlimited power. Faith rising above feelings means you don't wait to feel strong before you speak strength. You don't wait to feel hopeful before you declare hope. You don't wait to feel victorious before you thank God for the victory. Faith acts first, feelings follow. Faith steps forward while fear whispers in the background. Faith prays boldly while doubt tries to shake your confidence. Faith believes that what God said is already in motion, even if nothing around you has moved yet. Rising above circumstances means trusting that God's timing is perfect, even when your personal timeline feels broken. It means believing there is a purpose behind every delay, a lesson inside every hardship, and a blessing waiting beyond every challenge. It means knowing that God is not limited by what limits you. When you pray with faith, you align yourself with heaven's perspective, not earth's problems. And when your faith rises, your story begins to rise with it. God stepping into the areas where human strength fails is one of the most profound demonstrations of his love and power. There are moments in life when no amount of effort, planning, or determination can fix what is broken. You can push with all your might, fight with all your energy, and try to hold everything together, yet still feel everything slipping through your fingers. It is in these moments when your strength is depleted, your ideas are exhausted, and your heart feels heavy that God enters the scene. He is not intimidated by weakness. He is not hindered by limitations. He walks into the places where you have reached your end because your end is his beginning. When the message talks about God stepping into those fragile places, it paints a picture of divine power meeting human limitation with compassion and authority. There is a purpose behind why God often waits to show himself strong until you have run out of strength. When you are able to handle everything on your own, you sometimes forget to lean on him. When everything is smooth, it is easy to depend on routine, skill, or resources. But when everything collapses, when the answers dry up, when the people you counted on disappear, that is when you see God in a way you have never seen him before. Human strength can carry you through easy seasons, but only God can carry you through storms, battles, and wilderness places. And he often chooses to reveal his power right at the point where you whisper, "I can't do this anymore." God steps into broken places not to judge you, but to lift you. He steps into weakness not to expose you, but to strengthen you. He steps into confusion not to condemn you, but to guide you. There are areas of your life where you silently struggle, where you smile on the outside, but battle on the inside, where you pretend to be strong because you fear others won't understand your vulnerability. But God sees every hidden battle. He sees every private tear. He sees the weight you carry that no one knows about. And he steps into those invisible spaces with healing, clarity, and peace. He comes into the moments that shake you, not just to stabilize you, but to transform you from the inside out. Human strength eventually runs out because it was never meant to sustain the full weight of life. But God's strength does not run out. His grace does not weaken. His power does not fade. When you reach the edge of your endurance, he steps in with supernatural ability. He gives peace that doesn't make sense, strength that rises unexpectedly, and comfort that settles deeply into the soul. He restores what you thought was permanently damaged. He repairs what seemed beyond repair. He breathes life into places that felt emotionally or spiritually dead. When God enters the areas where your strength fails, he doesn't just fix the situation, he strengthens the person. He builds resilience, deepens faith, and reminds you that you are never alone. The place where you broke becomes the place where he builds. The moment where you fell becomes the moment where he lifts. And the chapter that looked like defeat becomes the chapter where his glory is revealed. Prayer, inviting God's power into every part of your life, is more than a routine or religious act. It is an invitation for divine intervention in places you cannot reach or fix on your own. When you pray, you are opening the door for God to step into your circumstances, your emotions, your relationships, your battles, and your future. You are declaring that you cannot carry everything alone and that you need his presence to fill the spaces where confusion, pressure, or weakness try to take over. Prayer is not about reciting perfect words. It is about creating a spiritual connection that allows God to breathe peace into chaos, strength into weakness, and clarity into uncertainty. When you ask God to touch every area of your life, you are acknowledging that every part of you, not just the visible or public parts, needs his grace. Every person carries areas that feel heavy. Some people carry emotional wounds that no one sees, while others carry family responsibilities that feel overwhelming. Some battle financial stress that steals their peace, while others face mental exhaustion that drains their hope. Prayer brings all these areas before God. It says, "Lord, I refuse to hide any corner of my life from you. I want you in the places that hurt, the places that confuse me, the places that scare me, and the places that excite me. There is no area too small for God to care about, and no area too broken for him to heal. When you invite God into your entire life, your thoughts, decisions, struggles, victories, and fears, you are giving him first place instead of treating him as a last resort. Inviting God's power into your mind means asking him to calm the storms of anxiety, silence the voice of fear, and fill you with wisdom that goes beyond human understanding. Many battles begin in the mind, and without prayer, those battles can grow uncontrollably. Prayer brings divine thoughts into the battlefield of your mind, shifting your perspective and restoring your strength. Inviting God into your relationships means asking him to mend what is broken, protect what is fragile, and bless what is healthy. It means allowing him to remove toxic influences and bring the right people into your path at the right time. When you ask God to breathe on your finances, you are not simply asking for money. You are asking for guidance, discipline, favor, and provision that only he can orchestrate. When you pray over your family, you are covering them with protection, peace, unity, and spiritual growth. And when you pray over your future, you are placing your destiny in his hands, trusting that he knows the best route, the best timing, and the best opportunities. Prayer invites God's power into your battles as well. There are fights you can't win by yourself, especially the spiritual ones, but prayer brings the strength of heaven into the battlefield. It shifts what you cannot shift and breaks what you cannot break. It opens doors that effort alone cannot open. It brings solutions that logic alone cannot provide. Asking God to breathe on every area of your life is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is understanding that life is too big to handle alone, and God is too good not to invite into everything. When you pray this way, you live not by your own power, but by his, and his power is limitless. When you understand that God has the power to rewrite your story, everything about the way you see your struggles and setbacks begins to change. Life often hands you chapters that you never asked for, chapters filled with disappointment, betrayal, loss, and confusion. There are moments when it feels like the story of your life is being written by hardship itself. But the truth is, no matter how many chapters feel broken, God holds the pen. He is the author who can revise, restore, redirect, and redeem every line. What looks like an ending to you is often just a pause to him. He can take situations that seem final and breathe new beginnings into them. When God decides to rewrite your story, he does not simply edit the pain, he transforms it into purpose. There are seasons where you feel stuck, as if your life is trapped in a cycle that refuses to break. You may feel defined by mistakes you made years ago or circumstances you had no control over, but God does not define you by where you've been. He defines you by where he is taking you. He can erase shame, rewrite identities, and lift you out of patterns that felt permanent. The shift begins when he removes what weighs you down, relationships that drain you, habits that hinder you, and environments that limit your growth. God knows what cannot follow you into your next season, and sometimes his rewriting includes closing doors you wanted to keep open. His no is often the protection you didn't realize you needed. When God rewrites your story, he restores what seemed lost forever. He brings healing into wounds that have been open for years. He revives dreams that died in your hands. He can take the pieces of your brokenness and rebuild something stronger than what shattered. Nothing is wasted in his hands. Even the parts of your story that you are ashamed of can become testimonies of strength and transformation. He does not rewrite by ignoring your pain, but by giving purpose to it. He doesn't erase your past. He redeems it so it can no longer control you. God also rewrites your story by releasing the blessings and opportunities that have been assigned to your future. What you thought was denial was often delay. What you thought was rejection was often redirection. His rewriting is strategic. He aligns the right people, the right timing, and the right circumstances to bring you into the fullness of your destiny. You might not understand the path he takes you on, but you can trust that his writing is intentional. He sees the chapters you haven't reached yet. He knows the endings you're praying for and the beginnings you never imagined. When God steps in to change your story, he silences the lies that told you you're not enough. He breaks the cycles that try to repeat themselves in your life. He opens doors that no human could open and shuts the ones that were destroying you. He positions you in places you never thought you'd reach. What felt like a lifetime of struggle can turn into a season of breakthrough with one word from him, one shift, one blessing, one encounter. The message of your life is not over. The chapters of loss, fear, or failure are not the final pages. God is still writing, and what he is writing next will be worth everything you endured. Trusting God before the breakthrough appears is one of the deepest expressions of faith because it requires believing without evidence, standing without support, and hoping without seeing the outcome. It means choosing to rely on God even when your situation looks unchanged, your prayers feel unanswered, and your strength feels incomplete. This kind of trust is not built in moments of comfort. It is developed in seasons of uncertainty, when life is shifting, when the future is unclear, when the path ahead looks foggy. That is when trust becomes a spiritual anchor. Trust is what allows you to say, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I believe God is working. It is the quiet confidence that he is orchestrating something behind the scenes, even if all you see in front of you is silence. Trusting God before the breakthrough means releasing your need to control the outcome. So often we want answers, timelines, and explanations. We want clarity before commitment and assurance before surrender. But God invites you into a place where you walk by faith, not by sight. He calls you to lean on his timing, his wisdom, and his plans, especially when your own understanding fails to make sense of the situation. When you trust him early, before anything shifts, you are saying, Lord, you don't have to prove yourself for me to believe you. This mindset pleases God because it shows maturity, surrender, and spiritual depth. It shows that your foundation is built on who he is, not on what he gives. There are moments when trusting God feels like standing in the dark waiting for a light that hasn't yet turned on. You may feel forgotten, delayed, or overlooked. But trusting him means believing that the delay is not denial and the silence is not abandonment. It means believing that God is preparing the blessing in a way you cannot yet understand. Many breakthroughs require alignment, people to arrive, situations to shift, opportunities to open, and sometimes the delay is actually divine protection. Trust fills the gap between what you see now and what God promised then. Trusting God before the breakthrough also means guarding your heart against negativity and doubt. It means refusing to let fear rewrite what faith has spoken. It means silencing the voice that says, nothing is happening, and reminding yourself, God is always working. This trust stabilizes you when emotions rise and circumstances shake. It keeps you grounded while everything else feels uncertain. You begin to rest not in what is happening around you, but in what God is doing within you. Trust transforms waiting into preparation rather than frustration. There is power in trusting God ahead of time. When you trust him before the miracle, you are shaping your spirit for the blessing. You are positioning your heart to receive. You are declaring that your obedience is not dependent on the result. This kind of trust attracts divine favor because it shows that your relationship with God is rooted in love, not transactions. And often the breakthrough comes the moment trust becomes deeper than fear, stronger than doubt, and more consistent than your emotions. Trusting God before the breakthrough also turns your perspective toward hope. Instead of expecting the worst, you start expecting God to do what only he can do. You wake up believing he's shifting something. You pray believing he's moving something. You live believing he's preparing something. And little by little, you begin to realize that trust was the very thing God wanted from you before he released the blessing. When you trust him early, you are stepping into agreement with his promises. You are declaring that your story is secure in his hands. You are aligning yourself with his timing. And as you trust, God begins to unfold what he has been preparing all along. The breakthrough may not be visible yet, but trusting him before it comes is the proof that your faith is ready for what he is about to release.